It was my friend Adrian's story, one that he swore he'd never tell again after what happened on a freezing autumn night somewhere along the misty highways of northern France, where the wind howled across the open plains and the moon hung like a broken bulb in the starless sky, dim and trembling over the deserted gas station that stood in the middle of nowhere. Adrian was driving back from Germany after a business trip, tired and half awake, when his fuel gauge blinked red around midnight, forcing him to pull into what looked like an abandoned service station off the A29, surrounded by old pine trees that creaked with the weight of years. He told me that the place looked dead. No lights in the office, no cars, no movement, except for a single flickering neon sign that said, "Station du Nord." Its letters half-broken, buzzing with a ghostly hum. The air smelled of old diesel, wet asphalt, and something metallic, like blood and rust mixed together. He parked his car near pump number 3, left the engine running for warmth, and stepped out, shivering as the cold wind slapped against his jacket. The silence was unnatural, like the world had stopped breathing, and yet from somewhere distant came a faint echo, metal clanging. Maybe from a loose door, maybe something else. The pump display was covered in dust but somehow still powered on, the numbers faintly glowing green. When Adrian picked up the nozzle, static cracked through the air, and he thought he saw someone's reflection behind him in the car window. A man wearing a long black coat and a hat pulled low. But when he turned, no one was there. His pulse quickened. He looked toward the small convenience store attached to the station, and for the first time he saw a dim orange light inside flicker once, then go dark. He shouted, "Hello? Anyone here?" But his voice fell flat, swallowed by the mist. Then the lights came back, one by one, faint and yellowish, as if the building had heard him and awakened. He should have left right then, but curiosity, his worst habit, pushed him toward the store. As he approached, he noticed something odd. The ground was wet not with rain, but with something thick and sticky, spreading from under the shop door. He thought it was oil at first, but when he crouched down, he saw it was dark red. His breath caught. He pushed the door slowly, and it creaked open, revealing an old interior frozen in time. Dusty shelves, cans of food decades old, a half-melted clock showing 11:47, and behind the counter, a shadow moved. "Bonsoir," a voice rasped. Adrian froze. From the back room emerged an old man with hollow cheeks and eyes that gleamed unnaturally bright. He smiled, revealing blackened teeth, and said, "You shouldn't be here this late, monsieur. The night feeds on those who stop." Adrian tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe it was some deranged caretaker. But the man's tone was cold and deliberate, like a threat wrapped in politeness. "I just need fuel," Adrian said, backing toward the door. But the man nodded slowly and whispered, "Fuel? Yes, we have plenty of that." Then Adrian heard it, the faint gurgle of a liquid somewhere behind the counter, and as he glanced down, he saw a trail of that same dark red substance leaking from a hose that led to the storage room. Against his better judgment, he followed it, the air growing colder with every step until his breath came out in mist. When he pushed open the door, his stomach twisted. There were barrels stacked to the ceiling, each labeled with a handwritten tag that said Essence. But the stench wasn't gasoline. It was coppery, sweet, unmistakable. Human blood. The barrels weren't fuel, they were filled with blood. His mind screamed to run, but his legs refused. Then, from the shadows between the barrels, something shifted. A tall figure, bound in chains, pale skin gleaming wet under a dim red light. It was a man, or what was left of one. His face covered with a mask made of metal, eyes twitching as if pleading silently for help. The old man appeared behind Adrian, placing a cold hand on his shoulder. "He asked for fuel too," he whispered. "Now he gives it." Adrian stumbled backward, knocking over a barrel that spilled dark fluid across the floor. The old man's smile widened, and the store lights began flickering wildly. Suddenly, the neon sign outside buzzed louder, pulsing in rhythm with Adrian's heartbeat, and he heard voices whispering through the static, hundreds of them, murmuring in French, English, German, pleading, screaming, chanting the same phrase, "Stay with us." He bolted out of the back room, sprinting toward his car, but the front door had shut tight. The windows were blacked out, the pumps humming like they were alive. He tried his phone, no signal. Then the radio in his car came to life on its own, playing an old French waltz distorted with static. He jumped into the driver's seat, turned the key, but the engine wouldn't start. The lights in the mirror behind him flickered, and for a split second, he saw the man in the black coat standing behind the car, his face hidden, holding something metallic dripping dark fluid. Adrian screamed, slammed the horn, and finally the car roared to life. He sped out of the station, tires screeching, but when he looked back in the mirror, the entire building was gone. Only the neon sign flickered faintly in the fog before fading into darkness. For hours, he drove aimlessly through the countryside until dawn broke, and he found himself parked near a small cafe in a nearby village. When he went inside, pale and shaking, he told the owner what happened. The old woman behind the counter frowned and said, "Station du Nord? That place burned down 15 years ago. The man who owned it, he used to drain blood from travelers to sell to black market hospitals. They found barrels of it under the floor." Adrian didn't believe her until she showed him a newspaper clipping framed on the wall. The same neon sign, the same man in the photo, smiling in front of the gas pumps. His name, Marcel Giroux. Adrian left immediately, but the nightmare didn't end there. A week later, he found strange stains under his car's hood, thick and dark red, though he'd replaced every part since that night. Sometimes, he says, when driving alone late at night, the radio still flickers to that same distorted waltz, and the faint hum of Station du Nord echoes through the speakers. He's never gone back to Europe since, but every year on the same night, his GPS reroutes him toward that same stretch of highway, as if the road remembers him. And the last time I saw him, his hands trembled as he whispered, "When your tank is empty at night, never stop where the lights still flicker. They're not meant for the living." I still don't know if Adrian was hallucinating, if sleep deprivation twisted his mind, or if something truly followed him back across the sea. But when I looked up the name Marcel Giroux myself, I found that the case was real. The man was never caught. Some say he moved to another country and reopened his station. Others believe he never died, that he found a way to preserve himself through the blood he harvested. And if you ever drive through Europe late at night and see an old gas station glowing dimly in the fog, just keep driving. Don't stop, don't look, don't even slow down. Because maybe Adrian's story wasn't just a warning, it was an invitation. So if you've made it this far into the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more real horror from the darkest corners of Europe. Because sometimes, the road ahead doesn't lead home. It leads back to Station du Nord.